Hello and welcome back to the Argyle CISO Leadership Forum, the evolution of information security. My name is Michael with Argyle. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our panel moderator. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience at any time during today's event. You can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which include complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat and we will address your questions at the end of the session. And now, without further delay, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Umesh R. Hadagata, PhD, AI Strategy Leader, Scientist, and Professor at Northeastern University. We're excited to have Umesh and our panelists with us for panel discussion titled Automation Nation, AI and ML for Cybersecurity. Umesh, we're so excited to have you with us here today. Thank you for being here. Welcome, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Michael. Good morning, good afternoon to all our audience who have taken time to attend this discussion on AI and cybersecurity. My name is Umesh Harigara. I will be the moderator for this panel discussion. So we have some excellent members on today's panel who have in-depth experience in the area of cybersecurity, as well as how to apply AI and machine learning to solve some of the cybersecurity challenges. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Dr. Ibrahima N. Cisse. He is a senior distinguished engineer at Capital One. I would like to, Dr. Ibrahima, would you kindly tell us more about your experience quickly?
Umesh, thank you so much, and good morning, as you said, afternoon, and good anytime where everyone is right now, and for the opportunity to be here with all of you today. My name is Ibrahima Cisse, and I'm a senior distinguished engineer with Capital One Financial. My responsibilities at the financial institution is strategic outcome within the bank. I keep calling it the bank, but it's a financial institution in the cyber tower, supporting the CTO, the CISO, our CISO, and our leadership in the bank. So you can imagine whatever comes into play, as long as it's for strategic outcome, I'm responsible. I have a say in most of those things, from the post-quantum encryption thing to AI and cyber, to our engagement within fintech, and how are we leveraging AI to deal with some of our more cybersecurity challenges, start from the discovery and the remediation of vulnerabilities at scale, at both operation scale and also at mission scale. So I'm pleased to be here with all of you, and then hopefully it's going to be a fantastic discourse. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ibrahima. And then we have Dr. Jay Yang. He is a professor and a director of Global Outreach, Global Cybersecurity Institute at the Rochester Institute of Technology. Dr. Yang, would you kindly tell us more about your experience and what you do in this area?
Thank you, Mesh. Very nice to be on this panel. And I've been working on the AI/ML for cybersecurity operations research for, I would say, since around 2005 timeframe. And my research has been supported by National Science Foundation, a lot of DoD agencies, and so on and so forth. And over the years, we've been developing quite a few different prototypes. They're really exploring how practical, meaningful artificial intelligence, machine learning, or data science tools, systems that can really help practical operations. Of course, they're in academia, so nothing is really commercialized yet, but we do have a few prototypes and being test deployed in the real systems. And most importantly is that we've gained a lot of experiences on knowing the limitations and the real challenges we believe the AI/ML can help, but not replacing the operations.
Thank you.
The panel.
Thank you so much, Yang. And we also have Sultanat Mashirova. She is an advanced cybersecurity architect at the Center of Excellence, Honeywell. Sultanat, would you kindly tell us more about your experience?
Yeah, sure. Hi, and first of all, thanks for having me here. My name is Sultanat, and I work, yes, as an advanced cybersecurity architect at Honeywell. So basically, I'm subject matter expert in industrial control system cybersecurity. Some people call it OT cybersecurity, and some people call it critical infrastructure cybersecurity. So basically, my main responsibility is to create cybersecurity products, test cybersecurity products, which works in an OT environment, and of course, trains the OT, Honeywell OT engineers as well. And before being in Center of Excellence, I was involved with on-site cybersecurity assessment, mainly in oil and gas, network implementation, and cybersecurity assessment as well.
So thank you so much, Sultanat, and thanks everyone for a wonderful introduction. So today, we all know almost every organization is adopting AI and machine learning to solve many of the business problems by using the vast amount of data that is available for us today, which was not there 20 years back, probably. So whether it is finding the fraudulent bank transactions, or recommending your investment portfolio, or how fast your food order can be delivered with self-driving cars. So companies are heavily adopting AI and machine learning. There are many applications on AI and machine learning in every other field. So I would like to start asking the panel, what are some of the practical examples of cyber security that we can solve using AI and ML? So can we start with Ibrahima? Would you like to start? Give us some practical examples.
Thank you so much, Doug. And just as you've highlighted, the applicability of AI, ML, it's humongous. We're seeing it in everywhere, but some practical application in my domain, current domain, I could share, because I've got to share. I spent 12 years in national security right after PhD, which much cannot be talked about. But let's say hypothetically, not speaking on behalf of Capital One, but I've seen the demonstrated capabilities within the discovery and then the remediation of vulnerabilities. Because as you highlighted, Doc, we've seen the challenges of big data. Wherever one goes, we're talking about big data. How do we find needle in the haystack? Before, you could say, if you're in security, and we've seen systems, we used to write rules, a rules-based engine. If X, then Y. If Y, then Z. If Z, then something. But those will never scale. And with the human capacity limitation that we have at work and the massive amount of data that we're dealing with, whether it's today or yesterday or tomorrow, one will hear there's a cyber breach, there's a breach here, there's a breach here. So the only, and not only the only, but there is an opportunity with AI to help us scale operations. And in scaling operation, we can augment our limited human capacity and resources to be able to automate things that we know how best to do, and also help us find the needles in haystack, because that's what we are dealing with. We are in an environment where one has to be humble, especially in security. We have to assume that we are operating in a compromised environment. So in operating in such an environment, in the presence of massive amount of data, the opportunity there for a present self where we can leverage ML, to some degree AI, as one might say, to be able to look at this massive amount of data, analyze them where our human capacities could be limited to do so, to see how best, what it is could we uncover from this data. So from the practical applicability side, one particular example, I know I've said it, is the discovery and in the remediation of vulnerabilities we've seen. If you've seen a vulnerability, Sultanat has experience, we've seen it, and then Dr. Young has experience, we've seen it. And if you were to see it with AI, with ML that we've learned, we could say, hey, we've seen this thing in this environment, and it's no different from the problem you are experiencing. Why can't we use those solutions to apply it? So we could automate those solutions and be able to remediate vulnerabilities at scale. So this is one practical example, but there are tons of other examples one can talk about. But in respect of my colleagues and time, I'll yield the rest back to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Ibrahima. Professor Young, would you like to share some of the work or examples from your Cybersecurity Institute that you have been working, you are
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm not necessarily going to say that just about my work. So I think that the industry need to understand a little bit more about this question. I think it's a good question, right? So let's first try to sort of think about the so-called AI/ML. I think that we need to be broadly defined. It's not just about that you have a training data, you label data that's classified, the images people talk about. That's not the only type of AI. There's a lot of different machine learning models, artificial intelligence models, so as well as data science, pattern mining, and algorithms. The point is that whether machine can help, and I agree with Ibrahima that it's really to alleviate the human workload. That's the most important part, sort of find a needle in a haystack. Now, over the past, I would say 10, 15 years, there are some success, maybe to not always satisfactory as both researchers and practitioners in the area of cybersecurity for using this broad definition of AI and data science. That includes malware detection, that includes phishing email detection, that includes URL, the bad URLs detections. Again, that we may not be satisfied where it is today, but it's a lot better than 15 years ago, if you really think about it. So, but are we there yet? No, we're not, because this landscape is it's changing very fast, right? In a very quick way. Unlike images that our human face doesn't change that fast, but cyber attack changes very quickly. So the AI ML, even though if you are satisfied, we already improve a lot. Now going forward, I do think that a lot of the AI ML data science can help is correlate. Right? Think about human cognition, is perception, comprehension, and anticipation. So far, a lot of things that AI ML data science have used is on perception, meaning that you detect things. Now, comprehension will be the next level, which we already have some commercial product out there claiming they're doing the right thing on correlating alerts, correlating events, right? Try to explain what has happened, try to find the campaign, and so on and so forth. They're not perfect, but we are going to make it better and better and better as an industry, as a community, as a research. And I think that the level after that is to anticipate, right? So for example, can we use AI ML data science to say what will be the next variant of malware? So think about COVID, right? We all know about this. So there are a lot of tools there and thinking about, can we predict the next variant? Very difficult on that side. Same thing, can we predict next malware variant? Can we predict the next variant of the phishing techniques and so on and so forth? I think there's a chance on doing that, just very few people doing it because research-wise, very difficult to validate that kind of research because you don't know the future, how would you validate the future? I'm going to stop here and then come back to for those this conversation.
Thank you so much. Sultanat, would you like to share some of the critical infrastructure perspective? What are some of the examples that you have come across? Can you share us?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I deal with industrial control system, which means IT is usually with digital assets, and OT, we always say it's related to the physical process. So impact is quite different usually. So how, in my practice, how we do AI in an ICS, yes. Usually in OT environment, OT network, we call it, the network is usually static compared with IT. Usually in IT, you have a lot of email exchanges, web browsing, installing a lot of software, but OT is quite static. It doesn't connect usually to the internet. That's why it's easy to utilize AI or machine learning to build a baseline of a normal traffic. And if there is something going on in the network, some anomaly, or some configuration has been changed in human-machine interface, or even if PLC code changed or firmware has been updated, it usually alerts the security personnel. And of course, it can respond, but responding with AI, it's a little bit dangerous in OT environment, but if it has been tested in a lab prior, it's usually beneficial to the OT environment. And then, as I said, it is static environment, and then AI can detect why human-machine interface is communicating with the internet and sending some files to the internet, let's say, because usually it shouldn't be connected to the internet. So in that way, we use this machine learning, I would say, to detect anomaly from the baseline, usually in the network and configuration changes.
Oh, great, great. Some of these things probably we have been doing for quite some time, but why are we using AI? What are the biggest value you see using AI in these kind of security environments or for the cybersecurity problems? Sultana, yeah, you can.
Oh, sure. So if I speak not only in cybersecurity, but security problems in industrial control system, right now, AI and machine learning is enabling many asset owners with predictive maintenance, which means is according to the AI, according to the algorithms utilized in the software, they can predict the equipment downtime. They can have a condition-based maintenance and energy efficiency of the equipment and processes. And then recently I had a conversation with energy company, and they said since they have a lot of data right now and they have predictive analytics on it, now they can make quantitative risk-based approach. So they can make very accurate risk-based decisions and apply countermeasures on it.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Professor Jay? So what are the biggest value of applying this AI and machine learning?
I think that Brima talked about that already, so I just echoed what he said. It's really on helping to process a large, huge amount of data, finding a pattern that may not be as easy to find. Right? It's not to replace human, it's to actually speed up the process. So if we think about AI ML not as the fancy magic black box, more think about using the word data science, I think that you will find a lot of solutions there that really can help the human. Now, in specific cases where we can use label to train data, now the specific supervised learning techniques, that's one techniques will be helpful. Right, to really finding things and learn the features in a lot of ways that we couldn't. But I would say in general, it's really about finding the pattern, process large volume. But still a lot of work need to be done on the research side, because even the AI ML community does not have all the solution yet to deal with the lack of label situation and the changing label situation, the drifting situation. But a lot of those still need to be resolved as well. But I would say mostly it's deal with large volumes, so the big V's, right? Large volume data, the velocity, veracity, variety, and so on. So let's deal with that.
Oh, great, great. How do you see this, Dr. Ibrahima, in case of finance, industry, or in general, when it comes to the cybersecurity challenges in finance? So, what is the biggest advantage of this AI?
I was on mute. You mean still looking at the value perspective point of view, right? Just okay. So I think when we speak about value, there's a lot that both Sultanat and Dr. Yang just highlighted. And one could categorize them, maybe there's only one way to categorize it, because there are, I will say, scaling the operation. Let's say if we are to start with that, because as we talked about, the human capacity, resource-wise, is limited. So to augment and scale what we can do at work, there is a potential over there. But the downside or the beauty of it is that both the adversary, both the good guys, and supposedly I don't like the word bad guy, but the undesirable elements in society can also use it to their advantage. Because I know Dr. Yang talked about phishing. Before, when I was a grad student, when phishing came out in 2003 and whatnot, the anti-phishing working group, we formed that and what. During those times, you'll say, okay, if you see a phishing mail, it will have bad grammar, it will have all of this. But now you don't have to, or you have to go hire an English professor or somebody to actually craft the right language for you. Now you don't have to do that. You can automate all those entire process. So not only for the good guy, but also the undesirable element can scale their operation, because what you could do within a month and what you could do within a day now, you could easily scale the operation. So the analysis, as Dr. Yang also talked about, the analyzing of the massive amount of data all comes into the umbrella, I'll call it the umbrella of scaling the operation. You could also see that there's a massive improvement in time. That is also possible with that, how you make decision, because I know now I can analyze data that would have taken me 3 days. I can do it within seconds. So the decision making can be good. The beauty of the decision-making part side, again, it can be a good thing right on time, but the decision-making you might have taken because of the, we are leveraging AI ML, you might be taking the wrong decision faster than instead of taking some due diligence time to do it. So there's always this pluses and minus side. I see value in the proactive defensive side, you know, as Dr. Yang mentioned, and as also Santana had mentioned, you could see in setting up the baseline, and I've seen that we've leveraged it in spam detection, the denial of service attack, as well as, you know, the discovery of vulnerabilities, which always tickle me. So again, there's a lot, as we could see, but it's dual purpose. Yeah, however, like any equipment one has, we can use a car to transport one person from one point to another. And we've seen undesirable elements within societies use cars just to cause devastation where it is not necessary. But yeah, I think it's massive, but I am in security. Whenever you feel like one should be humble enough, because the day you feel like you got it figured, somebody comes and eats your lunch right in front of you. So there's a lot we have to learn. There's a lot we could learn, because this is an area we mimicking our human mind, supposedly mimicking the mind, and yet we don't have a complete understanding, which Dr. Yang talked about. But I think we will talk more about that, because you see numbers, and what does that numbers mean? And that becomes a really huge challenge on the explainability side, and a whole lot of things, which when time allows, someday we could have a deeper discourse on those things too.
Yeah, great. So just to summarize what I heard, so the biggest value is processing the huge amount of data that is being generated by all kinds of machines and all kinds of network and infrastructure. So now the next question, which is something on the same related to the same thing, is what are some of the challenges that you have? Now, we talked about what are the advantages and what are the values, but what are the challenges that you see, you know, in applying some of these AI machine learning? So is it related to the access to the data? Is it something related to the resources availability, or is it something related to the tools? You know, what are some of the challenges, Ibrahima?
Well, the challenge is first, we have to recognize that there are beauty in this, which we've talked about. But some of the challenges I see in the operational environment is the absence of context. People will come to you with products and say, hey, I have this AI model because it's beautiful, it's a thing now. Everybody, I will not say, so generalize it, but you have entities coming to you said, we have this perfect model that can 99% detect, it's like, or 100%. The moment you tell me about that, I walk away from it, because I know that is an impossibility. Because the field itself, the AI, ML, the intent is for us to be able to generalize while we we maximize for generalization while you're trying to minimize the error. And if somebody comes to you and said, oh, I have 100% AI solution for whatever you're trying to deal with, I try to shy away from them as much as possible, because this is a thing we don't have a complete understanding of. And what scares me also, some of the time, these entities will, as I said, the context is missing. For example, when I go to the hospital, I see all those unfortunately, let's say visit a friend who is not feeling well, or just visit friend. I see all those equipment in patient's room. There are a whole lot of things. When I look at it, I have no clue what is going on. But when a doctor walks in, tells me that, oh, this is the cardiogram, this is what's happening, they put it in the context I can understand. So what happens is we build this model outside, AI system. Sometimes we try to bring it in an operational environment without understanding context. What do you think you detected? Or what do you think you're seeing? I already know that. That doesn't make any sense to me. So we are to make sure that when we build this system, let context be available, especially in the operational environment, because you might be doing a fool's errand. And what I call, there are a lot of snake oil salesmen when it comes to AI, the applicability in some areas. It's a little bit scary, but I suggest to people that do your due diligence. This is an area we don't have a complete understanding, because the applicability, we've seen it. The adversarial sides, we read about it, we've seen it. So one has to be humble enough, accept the good, but the bad, unfortunately, there's a whole lot more challenges when it comes, what I see in my operational environment. Because one thing I yield back to Dr. Yan. Dr. Yan did mention it's about the discovery of patterns that are hopefully useful, relevant, and that the human, when you look at the data, you cannot see. But there is also an interesting side I've seen. People will say, oh, give me more data, I'll build my model. It's like, no, at some point, regardless of how much data you get, your models and whatnot are not going to get any better. And the interesting thing also is, in the presence of massive amount of data, you can uncover patterns and be able to try to qualify them, but those patterns are actually useless. And one has to be careful of this. And I think in statistics, there's something called the Bumper-Harris principle. One needs to be very careful of that, because you might be running a full errand thinking that, oh, you've discovered an interesting pattern, but the reality of the pattern itself that you uncovered to do something relevant is a useless thing. And one has to be very careful of that.
Thank you, Brahma. Professor Jay, would you like to share what are the challenges that you faced with applying this AI on some of the examples that you quoted earlier?
Sure. So I think that there are three aspects of challenges here in this area. So first one is really on the technical side. The technical side, I'm an AI ML kind of person. What I see is that in the cybersecurity problems, in general sense, that the speed of change is a lot more than most other application domains, meaning that relying on a model that was built yesterday may not be really useful tomorrow. So the community need to find ways to not only build that technical model that's continuously evolving, but also metrics, quantifiable metrics, which is related to my second point, quantifiable metrics to evaluate whether the model is competent. Think about that a machine is not machine is a human, right? Whether it's a doctor or analyst, whatever that is. That person, we need to have a sense about whether the person or that machine is confident about the mental or the machine model. I think that's very important to have that continually evolving nature, but also measuring the confidence of the prediction. That's technical side. That relates to the second aspect, which is the trust between the human and machine. I think there was a question in the chat about kind of get rid of the human factor and things like that. I do not believe at all the AI ML data science is going to replace human in this particular domain and probably most of the domains, because that I think that is a collaboration between how human operators, defense, IT personnel, or people who design things needs to kind of evolve, as well as that how the machine model will evolve. I think that collaboration is very important. That trust between the two, the collaborative manner, the how to collaborate, the human-computer interaction is going to be very important. So that's a second aspect, the trust. The third aspect I would say is education. So right now, I believe that most of the education institution, higher ed or some others, teaches cybersecurity in a way that not necessarily involve AI ML, and likewise, a lot of people are teaching AI ML, but not necessarily in terms of cybersecurity. So you can think about the teaching set, not just for PhD students, but for undergraduate, for even high school students, I think that these two problems are the intelligence and security go hand in hand a lot, right? You build an AI/ML model and you be securing that, and you build a system, any software hardware system, you got to secure and make it more intelligent. So I think that there's a lot of overlap between that, and we as higher education professors and higher education institution curriculum, I don't think we're doing a great job in tightly connect these two topics well enough.
Great, Yang. Sultanat, would you like to share from the critical infrastructure? So what kind of challenges that you have faced, when you are trying to apply AI and machine learning?
Sure. So basically, Dr. Ibrahim and Jay covered most of the aspects. So the main challenge, I would say, if I say to the customer, let's say, we have a solution, AI-based solution for your endpoint protection, the first question comes to the resource. How much resource utilization is? Bandwidth, CPU. Why? Because in OT environment, we have a lot of legacy systems, proprietary protocols, restricted CPU, restricted bandwidth. That's why when we want to apply, let's say, to the endpoint, to the Windows machine, AI-based hit system, detection system, the first question comes to the resource. Another question, another challenge comes when we want to do, let's say, threat intelligence based on AI. For critical infrastructure, unfortunately, there is a very, very less data available if we speak about past incidents. Most of them are not reported, or most of them are not publicly available. And third point I would add here, again, for the resource, usually if you want to do computations for the big data, let's say the smart sensors that are getting the information, it should be connected to the cloud. And when you say to the customer, it should be connected to the cloud or to the internet, there of course, again, challenge comes in.
Oh, great. That comes to another important aspect of today's discussion, that is the tools and the technologies that are used in organizations to develop some of these AI, ML, and cybersecurity problems. So are these tools very proprietary, or is it same as some of the open source tools that are available? So could you shed some light on the tools and technologies that we use? Ibrahima, you want to go first?
Yeah, there are a lot of tools that are in the play, as you've highlighted, and there are a lot of open source materials out there people are leveraging. I try to shy away from tools because in my own vocabulary, they are fruit stands. The tool that is beautiful today, tomorrow it's no longer useful, especially in security. So as to the tool side, I think what we see emerging, and some companies, when one does research, you'll find the cognitive security side of tooling, that you have AI, ML, the deep learning side, plus the human intelligence. And to Dr. Yang's point, and into one of the question that was asked, we are not saying it's not going to be an impossibility, but we do need human in the loop right now if we are to do any better. So within that space, the cognitive security side, we see the convergence of AI, ML, deep learning, the ML, deep learning, and human intelligence coming together to do better. Because here we are reinforcing one another, to learn from one another, to do better, to be able to say, okay, if you see this, literally you are reinforcing the learning capacity, because there's some things we don't know, and we continue to help evolve as human ourselves. And one other thing that Sultanat has highlighted, the tools within that space, is this AI-driven endpoint response and detection. Because unfortunately, with the advent of COVID, where some of us are still working at home for over 3 years, when you look at how we used to work and how we work now, it's different. So the threat landscape has drastically expanded. So we're now seeing a lot of AI-driven solution within endpoint, the detection, the response within that area as one vernacular out there in the realization of zero trust, because the dynamic has actually shifted on us. How do I detect from my home instead of me sitting at the corporate office? And then for that to scale, we are leveraging AI. And then to some of the things that Dr. Young and even Sultanas have highlighted, the opportunity within the tooling space also exists, because the presence of data, both for academic and to do research, to actually build these tools, and then the labeling thereof is labor intensive. From the data science point of view, you realize that the plunging side, you have to roll your sleeve, do all of the things. The data is in a format that are not ideal for these models. So with the tooling within that space, we are seeing some work done in that area. So as I said, I try not to shy, I try to shy away to say, okay, this is the tool, the end all and be all, because tomorrow it might be a fruit, it will be all and stale. But a whole lot of work has been done. IBM's, the Microsofts and others, there are open source initiatives where people are coming together to truly, as Dr. Young has also talked about, on the education side. Because I've seen people write code, fantastic, it does AI, ML, but that code is not securely written. There is no cybersecurity in mind. So you have a cybersecurity guy who's trying to leverage AI and he doesn't understand it. So there has to be a convergent point where these entities come together to do what is best for the industry and for humanity at large, because that's what we are trying to address to keep us here.
Yeah, Professor Day, so can you tell us some of the tools and that you are using at the university and that your Global Cybersecurity Institute?
So if you're talking about commercial tools, there are a lot of tools out there that again claims to have some AI in there, but most of these tools are really more of a data warehousing SIEM tool. And then, of course, every organization are using some kind of phishing email detection, some kind of dual authentication. Those may not necessarily be qualified as AI/ML tools. Most of them are more rule-based, but still, there are a lot of tools. Now, in terms of research tools, there are some tools that has been developed. I think that there's a lot of potential in the entire community, not just from my side, but entire community to kind of really prototyping, creating this Git repo for AI/ML solutions for the practitioners, right, for business to try out. And there are some out there, including our own, but also other people's. Right? So if people look at my LinkedIn and other things, contact me to tell you mine. But for this audience, I will say there are a lot of things you can try out there. But I'll caution you that most of the student research, right, are not ready for prime time. So there's a lot of collaboration that really can be done. I saw a question talking about where's the starting point to start planning for AI/ML business scope. I mean, if I interpret that question correctly, I think that you really can think about that. Is there something you can use machine learning models to help you look at what other businesses are doing that you are not doing? I think that's a very interesting thing to think about, is business analytics, but now in the sense of cyber threat assessment, cyber risk assessment. And I'm getting into a topic that is not my area. It's really about insurance. So there's a big topic talking about the cyber risk insurance, kind of how people do that and what kind of models you can build, right? Insurance model you can build on that. And that I think also can use AI/ML as well. I think the technical side of detecting, defending against cyber threats, and the insurance of doing that, and these two actually go hand in hand. I think that's also an interesting area to think about, because it was mentioned about business side of things.
Oh, great, Young. Actually, there is one interesting question which I would like to address from the audience. We are almost running out of time. So this I found interest to everyone. Ibrahima talked about it, Sultanat talked about it, you talked about it. It is about, so how do you address the ethical issues that are most concerning today, when particularly we talk about the AI and data security? So would you like to answer that question? Yeah, go ahead.
You could see, I don't shy away from this as a Black man in America in the finance sector. You what we do in AI, the potential to proliferate, because before, when a human is doing certain things, the proliferation is somewhat limited. But now it's easy to proliferate at a galloping pace, a singular mistake. We are not saying it's deliberate, but naturally as human, we have intrinsic biases. For example, as a kid, when I complained, my grandmother would do this to me. And then when I said, what does that mean? He said, depending on, I don't want to offend anybody, depending on one's believers, he said, even the God supposedly that created you, he didn't make your fingers equal, but they all have a role to play. So you could see that there's this intrinsic bias. And you find it at home. Our parents are we all have the same mom and dad at the same place, but they favor one another. So there are these matters that one has to look inside self. So the diversity at the table to address these ethical issues are key. For example, let's say hypothetically speaking, at the bank, we have a model risk group. We ensure that we have primitives in place for responsible AI. When you build this model, they are going to be from diverse group, women, men, people from different backgrounds, and a different academic and whatnot training, all come into place to make sure that we check these things. We are not saying it's going to be perfect, but one has to conduct enough due diligences, because if not, by our nature, by our creative nature, the way we are created, we have biases. And one way to do is not to drink one's old Kool-Aid, but to be humble enough to entertain this discourse that when we come together collectively, we could do better. We have crazy examples that when you cite about the AI biases, AI ethics, because if you build models, those would determine where Sultanate could leave or should not leave, what credit gets extended to her. So these are some challenges in this space which tickles me, because as a computer scientist, I don't want to, these are things when in AI worries me because of the proliferation of that. But if we open up to each other, to the discourse, we believe we can do better. No particular person, one person, as they will say in English, several heads are better than one. And we try to follow that mantra as much as possible.
Oh, thanks, Ibrahima. Sultanat, what kind of data security challenges that you face when it comes to the cyber, infrastructure, critical infrastructure, and cybersecurity?
What are the cybersecurity challenges?
Yeah, data security, ethics, those kind of challenges in your critical.
Usually in critical infrastructure, as I said, there is not enough available data. Okay. This is the first challenge. The second is vendors. They have their own proprietary protocols, their own proprietary tools or proprietary software. They don't share this. That's why we have very, very limited data. Like energy sector uses, it's a very heterogeneous environment. It's not like in IT, Windows is Windows, Linux is Linux, like this way. But in OT, there are so many protocols, proprietaries that are not shared and that the data is not available. This is the main issues usually that we face.
Great. I think we have 2 minutes left. I think I would like to conclude with this one last question. So what are the trends that you see when it comes to the cybersecurity and AI? So we'd go with Professor Jay.
Thank you. But I really want to address a little bit about ethics issues that you talk about. I think that the thing that hasn't been mentioned is that as a research and industry and even individual consultant, when we are researching and trying to develop these solutions, we got to be careful and really think about how it could be used for offensive reasons, for cyber offense reasons. And that's an ethical issue that's very challenging. I think that there's a revealing of individuals, right? So there was a situation a couple of years ago in a academic conference talking about the papers were really looking to code and was inevitably to reveal the authors of the code who are actually introducing vulnerabilities. So there are 2 different issues I'm talking about. One is revealing the privacy issues on people who actually may have made a mistake. And second is that the misuse of AI ML tools for offense reasons. And both of these are challenging, probably not totally avoidable, but we need to be very careful as an industry, as a community together. And I'll leave the floor for others to talk about your last question.
Oh, thank you so much. I think we are almost end of our session. And I thanks all the audience as well as all the panels who are present today. And thanks Professor J. Sultanat Ibrahima for effectively addressing today's session with your experience and knowledge, enlightening all of us on cybersecurity and AI. I would like to talk more about it. Unfortunately, we are out of time. With that, I would like to conclude this session and hand it over to Michael.
Thank you so much, Umesh. Everyone, it was a wonderful panel. We appreciate you being here today. I also want to thank everyone for joining us today for this fantastic session. Now, this session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. Umesh and panel, thank you so much.